First of all, let me introduce myself to anybody that doesn't know who I am. I'm Jackie Gerse. I'm Vice President of Riverbend Photo Club, and I've taught a few classes here, and many of you have seen some of the classes I've taught over at QCPC. And so if you have any questions at all, if you think I've missed something, be sure to stop me and ask. I'm really easy to get along with when you do that, so that's fine. Before I continue on, I want to make sure, has everyone got their Lightroom Classic CC open, if that's what you're using? So you don't have to do anything more than just have it open and ready to go. Yeah, Lucy?
I don't have internet.
From now on, I will just call it Lightroom. I'll just update it because it's going to be a habit. It used to be called Lightroom. This version of it was called Lightroom. It's a bad habit. Now it's stuck. I'm going to call it Lightroom. I am talking about Lightroom Classic CC as opposed to just Lightroom CC. Let me go over what we're going to try to accomplish in the next 4 classes. So for the next 4 sessions, we are going to try to get you as informed about what Lightroom does and how you can accomplish your edits. So I'm going to try to tell you as much as I possibly can. Now, generally when I teach, I would start at A, move to B, then go to C, and I would follow a line. But if I did that, by the time I got you up to speed with editing, we would be in our last class. So what we're going to do, the way I'm going to teach this to you, is I'm going to start out and I'm going to tell you a little bit about the import menu, a little bit about the library, and a little bit about develop. So you can go home after this class and actually use it. Otherwise, I'm afraid it wouldn't be usable until week 4, and I don't want that to happen. So what I'll do is I'll tell you enough to get you going so that you can use this until next class comes up, and then we'll add to what you know, and you can just keep building on what you can accomplish within Lightroom. So tonight, I want to explain a little bit about the way Lightroom operates that you may or may not understand, and it could make a difference to you. And when we import, we say we're going to import to Lightroom. We're actually importing through Lightroom. So Lightroom is not a software that contains our images. It just knows where we want to store them, because if we import through Lightroom, we will put the images in a file where we know that they are, and then Lightroom also knows where they are, so it can access information from those files when we go in to do our edits. So it will pull over to the information, get it, let us do our editing, and then it will save that information back to the file system that you saved it in. So if you didn't understand what I just meant by that, if you have stored your photos in files somewhere on an external hard drive or your computer's internal hard drive, you probably have a file folder system. You know, maybe it started out with My Pictures, and then you have a file folder that says, we'll just say travel, and you've put in vacation pictures throughout the years into this system, if you aren't new to taking pictures from the very get-go. So I'm assuming you've all been taking pictures, you've all accumulated files, you're just wanting to either learn Lightroom, or from the very beginning you have no idea how to use it, so we're going to start at the beginning, and that's what we're doing tonight. We're starting at the very, very beginning. So anyway, when we say we're importing to Lightroom, we're importing through Lightroom, placing it where we want it, external hard drive or our computer's internal hard drive, and letting Lightroom know where it is. So if they are already existing on a hard drive, again, tonight we will cover how you find those, bring them into Lightroom so you can edit through Lightroom. So let's get started with, I hope you have, whatever you have here today you have brought, we need you to bring that to the next class also. So only thing that would be different is you've got your computer and all the cords and paraphernalia you need for that. Yes, I need that. You also, if you're using an external hard drive, make sure you bring that. I would also like you to bring another SD card with 2 to 10 images. Don't get a whole lot of images, 10's plenty. If you had 12 or 15, not a big deal. But I don't want you to bring in 300, it's just going to take longer to deal with. So this is just, they don't even have to be good like the ones I was going to share with somebody if they needed them. They just have to be images so that you can see how the process works. And then let me explain just a little bit about what Lightroom is doing. It's just a cataloging system. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this. It's a cataloging system now with some pretty hefty editing ability. It started out as just be a cataloger. Now it's got a lot of power, and you can actually never go into Photoshop if you don't want to. However, if you are using CC, you got Photoshop and it's free, so we should do a class on that and get you over there, because I use both in conjunction with each other. I think I can get a much better product if I go into Photoshop and then come back to Lightroom, but I do a lot within Lightroom itself. So the first thing I want to do is have you do is, before we get started with our PowerPoint, is I want you to do me a favor, and I want to look for something that I don't have a screenshot of. But who's using a Mac in here? Are there Mac users? Okay, great. So on a Mac, I want you to go up to the word Lightroom on the top menu bar, and I want you to click on it. You're going to get a drop-down menu, and in that menu you should see where it says Catalog Settings. I would like you to find that for me. Click on it. You should get another window open. Just leave it open. I'm going to come back to you in a second, so just hold right there. Now for you PC users, it's going to be found in a different spot, but I would like you to go find the same thing. So you're going to go up to that main toolbar at the top, and you will see Edit. Up there at the top, I want you to click on the word Edit. You'll get your drop-down menu, and kind of towards the bottom, you should also be able to see something that says Catalog Settings. If you see that, click on it. Should open another little window, and now we should be at the same point. So does everybody see this new little window that has popped up on their screen? Kind of towards the top of that window, you should be able to look at it, and there should be a sentence that says, automatically write changes to XMP. Do you see that line, or does somebody not see it? And now the third thing down says, automatically write changes to XMP. And I would like you to have that box checked, please. So if it's checked, you're good to go, done, shut it down. If it is not checked, put a check mark in that box. So let me explain to you what you just did really quickly and what that means. Because does anybody else, just a lot of people I'm assuming don't know what an XMP is, so that's why I want to clue you in. An XMP is a type of file. And that is where your information from the edits lives. So as we do our edits in Lightroom or Photoshop and we save it, the information goes into this XMP file, which sits right next to your original file. So if you have file number 101, then right next to it you'll see and it's maybe 101.jpg or 101.nef if you're an icon shooter. Then right next to it you'll see the prefix will be the same. It'll say then .xmp. That is where it houses all the information for your edits. So if you're deciding to clean up some file system at some point in time and you look through your file system and you say, what are all these XMP files? I need to clean this up. I'm getting rid of them. Well, you've just thrown away every edit you've done. It's not like you've lost your original file, but you've lost all the editing that you've done to it. So you would have to go through and re-edit. Now, if you saved it somewhere off as a JPEG, then you've saved an edited piece. But for these Lightroom edits that have still are, you can go back. It's not completely fixed. You can change them. You would have lost all those. So don't delete your XMP files. Today we're going to start right now from taking it from the memory card point into the Lightroom and why we do it. So if you have your memory cards with you, insert those into your computer at this point in time, or whatever, if you're using a card reader, whatever the case may be, I want you to hook it in so that it's in there. I don't want you to do anything else with it, but I want you to put it in. Now what should have happened is the import screen should have popped open. If it did not, we will walk through how to do that. So do you see a screen that looks like this big one on the right? All right, so let's get you there. So if you look at the the little panel here on the left, this is what we're going to do. So you need to go up to File on the top bar there, and I want you to click on it. You'll get the drop down, and if you see about a quarter of the way down, it says Import Photos and Videos. So anytime that import screen doesn't pop open, this is how you get to it. So when it pops up, you should have something that looks similar to this. And let's go over what we're seeing here, and then we'll talk about why we're seeing it and how you need to deal with it. So on the left-hand side, that's called the source section. And if you look at the screen that I have on up here, the top of it says, right here, this more than likely says your camera's name. Even though you just got a memory card in there, it registers to Lightroom as your camera. So in this case, this is mine. It says Z7 because I have a Nikon Z7. If you're shooting Canon, maybe a 6D, then maybe it says 6D up there. If you're shooting a Sony 7R, then maybe it says 7R up there. Whatever the case may be, a lot of times it'll give you your camera name. If it uses something else, no big deal, but we want the one that's your SD card for this evening, and that should probably be showing your camera's name. If you look farther down, it says Devices. Well, first of all, it says Source, so there's a little arrow to the left of it. It's pointing down, so it's open. If you don't see more things down here than the word Source, then all you have to do is click on that little arrow. It'll turn and point down, and it'll open up some options for you, which is what you see here. And the top one says Devices. That's my camera. It's highlighted. Mine popped open when I opened it, but they don't always. As Brian said, you can turn it off and on, and we'll have to figure that out for you, and I'll get back to you on that if you didn't have it pop open tonight. The next one says Files. These are also places that you could find images that you might want to copy into Lightroom Catalog or add or move into the Lightroom Catalog. But for today, right now, because I didn't let you use a file that was already existing on your camera, on your computer, I wanted you to bring in a new image so that you knew how to handle a brand new image straight from your camera. So that's where we're starting. So in this case, it says my camera, the one we're going to use. It says my hard drive. This is a Macintosh. I have a Mac, so it's my Mac hard drive. If you're using a PC, it might say your C drive or whatever. You might have more than one drive listed there because you're a PC user and I'm not. I don't remember what drives are listed. This recovery thing, that's a real oddball thing that happened just to happen when I did this. So once in a while, Photoshop will crash. It did. It opened back up. It had a recovery file on it. It was still open when I took this screenshot. So this is a real unusual thing. I didn't even know it did that until I saw it on here and I figured it out. So we're going to ignore that one. I've explained kind of what it is. Just ignore it. The next one says my name, so Jackie 2. That's my external hard drive. So when I put my images in for storage, I store them almost always on an external hard drive. And I would suggest that you do that if you haven't already started doing that. Instead of storing it directly on your computer, you bypass the computer because you're just going to fill it up. It's going to run slow. So get an external hard drive, or preferably 2. And you would have one for your primary and one for your backup. But we're working with the primary right now. So let's just, this is if I wanted to bring something in that I've already downloaded. But again, I want you to start from scratch. I want to use the memory card that we put in. So you're going to find your camera on there. Make sure it is highlighted. Now we're going to move to the center section. We're going to look at it briefly. And you can see it's got some thumbnail pictures in there. That was on the card when I imported it from my Z7, and there was 12 pictures on there. And at the top, you'll notice there's 4 options. You should see all 4 of those. One of them is probably highlighted. The other 3 are kind of grayed out, but they are clickable. The first one on the left says copy as a DNG. The second one is highlighted here. It says copy. The third one says move, and it's grayed out. And the fourth one says add, and it's kind of grayed out too. And then there's a line of information underneath it, and that information is telling you what you will do when the highlighted one is clicked. So it says copy photos to a new location and add to catalog when copy is there. And the other option you would use if you're loading in new images from your SD card, you could possibly use copy as a DNG. Does anyone not know what a DNG is? Okay. When your camera writes information into a file, it has a file format. And if you're a Canon user, the file format is noted by a CR2. I'm a Nikon user. Mine says .nef if they're raw, if these are raws. If you were a Fuji user, then your raw images would show up as a .raf. I don't know what Sony's is or Olympus, but they all have their own native file systems, and they have a name by letters. And if you had a JPEG, that's another file format. So if you're shooting any of those brands and you're shooting a JPEG, then it's all coming in as a JPEG, .jpg, .jpeg, however it happens to come in. And you can see on here the NEF number is right there. This is the camera's number that is given it. We'll talk about that in a minute. But DNG, so I told you about what your camera's format numbers are kind of shown as. Well, DNGs are another file format type. And it was made by Adobe. So Adobe decided they should have their own file formatting, and this is what it's called, DNG. So you can definitely copy in as a DNG if you choose to. I do not personally care for DNGs. I think they handle a little bit different, just as though JPEGs handle different than my NEFs. I think DNGs handle slightly different also, and I prefer the way my Nikon NEFs handle. So therefore, I have tried it. I have used it. I prefer not to change the file format. So if you chose to do a DNG because you were shooting RAW, you can do that. What it will do when it writes it, though, you will not have the Canon type format. It will change as it comes into your computer, and you will only have DNGs. So you can try it on a couple files, see if you like it, or if you choose not to. And you look like a man who had something to say.
Well, I was just going to say there is the option, so you can have both.
Oh, all right. So I didn't realize that, but you can have both, but probably not if you click on that button. You're going to go to a DNG. Can you add it after, or do you do it on import?
Do it in preferences.
Okay.
Preferences bring in DNG along with CRW or
Okay.
whatever.
All right. So that would be something else you could get into the preferences about, and if you wanted both types of file formats. Adobe thought that it may come in handy somewhere down the road, I think is why they had their own, and they would keep it. But and other companies do use any DNGs. So if you use the different software, I think a lot of them will still use DNGs, even though it's not an Adobe product. Did you have a question, Brian?
I think they might have answered it. I was wondering if you were going to be using something besides Photoshop, would it recognize a DNG?
Yeah, I believe it does. I mean, I have never had one kick it out because it didn't. So I have not paid specific attention to that, but I think I would have noticed if it would not allow me to do it. So I believe that it does allow you. I couldn't say that across the board they all do. Because honestly, if you're using an old version, say you were using an old version of Lightroom and it's not up to date, it may not have the ability to read certain files coming out of certain new cameras. So, you have to keep up to date. So whether they all stay up to date, I couldn't speak for all. We're going to stick with Lightroom here. So let's go through and keep going on this interface. And then the right-hand column is the destination column. So the right-hand side of this panel is the destination. So we're going to go through here in just a second, and we're going to explain each one of these on the right-hand side. So the first window up here, this is the first thing. It says File Handling. And when it's open, the very first thing, it says Build Previews. And mine says Standard in the little box, and then there's two little arrows on here. You don't have to use standard. Maybe yours says minimal. That's usually the default, and you can do one of these 4. So if you click on that little box, it will show you these 4 options for what you can import your photos as. If you choose minimal, it is going to build the smallest preview that it can. And what's a preview? That's these little things right here, these thumbnails. So it's going to build the smallest preview that it can. It's the fastest on import because it's not building anything that's got as much resolution to it. But it's the slowest to use during editing, because what happens is when you bring up the big picture to be working on, you're going to see this thing. It says loading, 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 and it keeps spinning until finally it brings up enough information so that it can use it in the slide or the film strip that runs across the bottom or in the larger loop view. So in all, I think, I used to, when I first got it, I used minimal because it was default. I've now learned I don't care for it, so I've moved on. Now, embedded in Sidecar, I don't know a whole lot about this one. It takes slightly longer than minimal, but it still does the loading, loading, loading. So I just don't use that one. I'm sorry, I don't have a ton of information on that, but some. Standard. And you can set how big you want your standards to be. I've just used default for myself. It takes slightly longer on import than minimal does, but it doesn't take quite as long for it to load in the processing, the editing portion of it. So that's what I use. Would I like to use one-to-one? Absolutely, because it just pops right in there. And there's no waiting for it to load, load, load. The only negative with that, it takes forever to import. So if you are on vacation and you just shot 300 pictures and you have a camera like mine is 36 megapixel files for each image, and you got 300, 350, it will take forever, and you're thinking, I just want to go to bed, you know, or I want to go out for dinner, and you're waiting for your pictures to upload so you can put your camera or your computer away. So I don't use this. However, what it does do, first of all, it's larger in size. It takes a slight amount more of storage space out of your computer. Not a ton. It's not like it's taken the full 36, but it's definitely faster to use during the editing process. However, if you want to import them all as standard or minimal or whatever, and then come back later to the ones that are keepers or the ones that you know you're going to edit, you can go into the library, into previews, and then render one-to-one previews, and you can do it after the fact. So that's still a possibility. So let's move to the next screen, and this shows, so there's the standard in there. Now the next one is build smart previews. So let me tell you what that is, because that's a little bit another preview. So we build previews here, but now we're building a smart preview. What the heck? Okay. A smart preview is sort of a newer thing to Lightroom, but what it means is that you can edit within Lightroom. If you've built a smart preview, you can edit within Lightroom without having your external hard drive connected to your computer. So if you are loading your images into your computer's hard drive, there's no need to do a smart preview because it's right there. It has access to the file all the time. But if you're storing on an external hard drive, you can build this smart preview, and you don't necessarily have to have your hard drive connected to it to be able to edit in Lightroom only. If you're going to take it into Photoshop, you're going to have to get the hard drive and connect it. And the way it works is it lets you edit whatever you do, and then the next time you connect that external hard drive to it, behind the scenes, it will just update all the information for you. It'll write all that stuff that didn't, when it wasn't connected to that, it'll write it all to those XMP files and store it away where it's supposed to be, and so the next time you go to use it, it's all there. When would you use this and why would you do it? Well, sometimes you just are lazy. You don't want to get up and go get the hard drive that's in the other room, and you got your computer sitting on your lap or next to you at the table, so you can go ahead and do something until you need to go into Photoshop. Or maybe there's a good reason. Again, you're on vacation, you have taken these photos and you're on a plane and you want to edit while you're on your flight home. You don't have to drag out that portable hard drive and connect it to your thing. You can edit right, as long as you stay in Lightroom, you can just edit those photos and have it all ready. When you get home, you can connect the hard drive and it'll all sync up together and all will be great. Or you can do it in your car, or you could do it out on the deck or whatever, and you don't have to have that. You forgot it. Whatever the reason might be, you don't have to have it with you, and you can edit away from home, at the coffee shop, whatever. Okay, the next one says, do not import suspected duplicates. I keep that checked all the time. Now for me, I don't leave images on my memory cards very long. I do leave them on long enough to know that I've imported them, I've saved them onto my external hard drives. It actually copied them. They're actually there. There was no glitch. I didn't, lose anything going over there. But I didn't, maybe on vacation, still another perfect example. I used 300 pictures, but my card would hold 1,000 pictures. I don't want to erase it from my memory card, yet when I do day 2s, I don't want to have to deal with getting day 1s out of the way, so I can only upload day 2s because I've already done day 1s. So if I keep this checked, then it won't show me day 1s in this example. It would just show me the new ones that have never been imported. And so then I can just deal with the new ones. And then I can go out for day 3 on vacation, shoot a whole nother set of pictures, upload them, and as long when I've imported day 1s and day 2s, then it'll only show me day 3s. Does that make sense? So it's kind of a nice thing. I always keep that checked. If there's some odd reason that I want a duplicate, which is pretty rare, then I might uncheck that. The next one is kind of grayed out, a little bit hard to read, but you can make a second copy. So as you import to your primary location. You can also import to a backup drive. So that's why I said 2 drives are great. One is your primary, one is your backup. So you can plug 2 drives into your computer at the same time, and as it imports all at the same time, it can load both it'll put them in both places at the same time. Now, Lightroom only recognizes the primary location. So we're going to get into how you do the primary location in a minute. This is the secondary location. You would click on that where it's written, and you will have the file system. You can put it where you want it to go. But Lightroom doesn't remember this one. It only remembers the primary. But it does store it, and it gets it done much faster. This add to collection, if for some reason, we'll talk about collections in a class or 2 down the road. It won't be next class. We will learn all about collections, what they are, and how to use them. If you wanted to import every image into a collection, you can do it right here from the very beginning. If you check mark that little box in front of there, it will open up another screen, and you can select the name of the collection and tell it how to go in there. I have never done that, but that's my preference. If you want to do that, by all means, you can do it right there. So some people do, and they'll only work from collections. So importing the next file down when we're copying would be file renaming. Now your camera puts a name tag on each and every file as it comes out of your camera and goes in here. And for mine, if we went back to that, I think it was a DSC number, I think, DSC _ 4565. I don't know. It makes up numbers. It starts at 1. And it numbers until it gets to 9,999, and then it starts back at 1 again. Those numbers have no relevance to me. If I took a picture in this class and I took 5 different pictures, I certainly don't care that it says, oh, that was number 3,506. I would prefer it say it was number 1. Because I had 5 pictures, I want it to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't necessarily need these huge numbers that aren't relevant to it, So I like to rename. I don't need the DSC thing. That, again, doesn't mean anything to me. So for me, yes, I rename. I can fill in these blanks, and then it will come out the way I want it to look. And let's go through it real quick. So this is what it looks like. I've checked the box. The template, I've picked the different kind of naming I want. If you click on this, you will get this drop down, and it gives you some options, or you can make your own by doing edit. I very simply do shoot name and sequence. So I would come in this case, I went out and I photographed tulips. So I named my shoot name Tulips, and I had maybe 200 pictures. We'll just make this up. And so it starts at 1 and it goes to 200. Now if I took those today and I went through 200, and tomorrow I went out and took another 50 pictures of tulips, I could say, come in here, I want to keep the title as tulips because it's tulips. I'm going to even put it in the same folder. But I had 1 through 200. I don't want another 1 going in the same folder. I want to start at 201 because I had 1 through 200. So still tulips, a second shooting, a second session. I'm going to go ahead and start my numbering different. So then I can do my start number at, say, 201 or whatever the next one happens to be. Does that make sense? So you can put a bunch of different we'll say sessions in one folder, and you can start your number where you left off. The next says leave as is. I believe if you get in there, and I didn't double check it, you can either have them all caps or all lowercase. I think that's the kind of option you have there. If you want to know, look, you have access to yours, I don't. I just leave it as is. And so the way it lays out the sample, it looks like this: tulips dash, and then it starts at 1, so it's 001.nef. And if that looks right to you, then you're good to go, and so then you're ready to move on down the line. And so let's move to the next one. And so this is talking about organization. So really from this point right tonight, if you're just new to Lightroom, you need to really figure out how you want to organize your files, if you haven't already done that. Some people will organize by dates, some people will organize by subjects, and some people will use a combination of subject with a date. So what works for you? Dates will not work for me. I have no idea what I did April 2nd, 2005. I just don't know. It would mean nothing to me if I saw that in my list. I would have to click on it to see what was inside. Now, if you have one of those minds that work on dates and that works for you, great. For me, it doesn't work. I use subject or maybe subject, combination subject date. So what I do is I set up, and you can see an example down here at the bottom. I might have a folder that would be called family. And in family, I have a file named Carter. And then Carter has a file with pictures in it from his first days in the world. And then he will have a new folder, newborn, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, so on. If I had a travel folder, I would have a travel folder named Travel. Then I would have, say, Yellowstone, and I went to Yellowstone this year, so I would say I want a folder named Yellowstone under my travel section. But what happens if you know you've been to Yellowstone before and there's already pictures in a folder named Yellowstone? That's when the combination comes in for me. And so I would say, well, I know I went to Yellowstone in the fall of 2015, so when I made that folder, I would have titled it Yellowstone 2015. I just went to Yellowstone this January, so I would title that Yellowstone 2019. So I still am segregating it by subject, but making it varied by putting that date. And then and if you needed to, you could even say fall 2015, winter 2019, or January 2019. Whatever makes sense to you, you should do. But I use a combination. It just helps keep me organized. So now that you need to figure this out, if you haven't already, let's talk about how you're going to put your images in and find that organizational system here. So when I go to the next file down, we had file handling, file renaming, and below that you'll see that apply during import. We're skipping that one tonight. And then the next one is destination. And you will see hard drives listed here. Here's my computer's hard drive. Here's an external hard drive. If you don't have an external hard drive listed, you're probably only seeing the computer's internal hard drives. But if you want to store these images in an external hard drive, you would need to connect it now if you haven't. So we would then have some sort of ladder here with your filing system on it. If you take and you right-click on any of these file folders that already exist, you will get this little window pop open. If you have a brand new external hard drive and you have no files in it, you have nothing to click on, and so it will not give you this option. If you wanted to click on the name of your hard drive, it will not give you this option. So one thing you do have is you have file folders in your computer. So if you right-click on that, even if we're not going to use it, it will get you at least to your filing system. Now this is what a filing system looks like on a Mac, so you PC guys have something similar. It may not look exactly like it, but it's similar. And so you can look at how you've got it set up, and you can see this is my hard drive, so it's highlighted that, and then I have my filing system and my main folders. And you can see there's travel, so I have the travel. And here's Carter's, so that was he has his main folder set up. Yes, Mike?
Jackie, do you create these folders on your hard drive before you open up Lightroom?
I don't, and I'm going to show you how to create them in here. I mean, you can do it either way. If it's already created on your hard drive, it will show up here automatically. It'll show up right here. If you haven't got it here, then this is how to create it within Lightroom. But Lightroom,
Back it up and create it on your hard drive then too?
yeah. So Lightroom will find all the folders that you have already pre-created in the file system that you hadn't done through Lightroom maybe. It will find those. Or you can create it right in there. So you can go either way. I'm going to walk you through how to create them right in Lightroom here. So once you get this option to create new folder, it opens this. You find where you want to place it. In this case, I want to place it in my hard drive, external hard drive. I want to highlight his main folder, and I'm going to make a new folder inside of there that is first days. So this is what it looks like. So I'm going to advance here. So here's a little bit closer view so those in the back can see it maybe a little easier. So I clicked on Carter's main folder. It opened this. Now I would click on here. It'll highlight it, and it will open up that file system. It's highlighted. I'm going to make a new folder. You'll find that somewhere on your page if you're a PC user. And it opens up the ability to title it. PC might open it here with the ability to title it. I'm not sure where it puts it. But you can make a new title for it instead of Untitled. So for tonight, if over in this right-hand panel you're seeing, some of you have numbers, like Kathy has all dates, and it's showing up, but we're not really concerned about all this other stuff. We just want to make a new folder to put your new images in. And if it fits in the filing system that you've got, you could make it by date if you wanted to. Or from this point on, you could create a new folder, and we can figure out how to change all those names on that one. But you could go ahead and make a new folder with a name on there, like Churchill.
I will.
Okay. So just ignore those. All you have to do is right-click on one of those dates. It doesn't matter which one.
Okay.
And it should open up that.
It says create new folder.
Yep. Click on it.
Right.
And then once you have created that folder, you will say create the folder. It will put it there. See, it put it here. It'll put it wherever you tell it to put it. And if we need to work with each one of you, we can do that so you don't get confused. And then you will click choose. And Lightroom will respond to that, and it will show that folder, in my case, first days, in that panel right down there. So, all right, so now we've decided that it's going to come out of our SD card from our computer. We need to pick the pictures that we want to put in that file. So to pick a picture, if you know you want a series, like in this case I show 12 pictures here. Now it could be that I can scroll up and down and I would have more, but we'll just pretend there's 12. And of those 12, I want 10 of those to go in that file. I don't care about this first one, and I don't care about that last one. I just want the 10 in the middle to go. So I need to select those. To select, I can click on the first one, anywhere in this box, I can click on it. Then I will come down to the bottom one, the last one in this case, and I will shift click, and it will highlight all of these. Once they're highlighted, all I have to do is check mark one box, and it will fill check marks in all 10 of these. Now, you say 10, that's not a big deal. I could just check mark every box. Yeah, that's true. But if you had 1,000 pictures, you want to do this select and then check one box. Because they might not all be together either, so you may have to go in and... but once you have them check marked, that's the important part. They have to have that check mark, and then you will go down and you will hit import. So if you sure you understand what I just said, go ahead and click import. All right, so something just came up. If you're not getting that shift click to work, you have to have you don't click on the little check mark. You put the cursor on the image, and then you come down to the last one, and you put your cursor on the image and shift click with your cursor on the image. So if you're not getting that whole run to select, that's why. So in order to do it, this is what we had to do. So this is a little checklist you can go through. Did you make sure you have the correct source selected? Did you check the box for each image to be imported? Was your file handling right, your renaming right, your destination location right? You click import, and then you can wait for it all to load. At this point, we're going to take a really quick break. So you can go out, get a drink of water, bathroom break, come back in here while your thing is loading, although it's probably already loaded because I was doing something. So take your break, come back in as soon as you can, so 10 minutes, 15 minutes max, and we will move on from there.